Hello, friends. We've made it. We're in 2021. I don't know about you, but it feels a little surreal. I look back at posts from a year ago, and on one hand, they feel like they just happened, and on another hand, it feels like it was a totally different life ago. But here we are. We're in a new season. We're in a new day. It's a new year. It's a new time for change and for growth. And it's a time for a new direction for the podcast. I want to say, first of all, thank you to everybody who over the past, 4 years have supported the About to Break podcast. It's just been a labor of love to have conversations with artists about the ups and downs of life in the entertainment business and what it looks like just trying to break into an industry before it breaks you. And now, let's be honest, we've all kind of had a breaking moment this year. It's been about 6 months since I took a little hiatus from the podcast as we kind of, regrouped and figured out what was next. And I'll be honest with you, I love talking with fellow artists about what the struggles and the challenges are. But right now, I don't know about you, I need some hope. I need some conversations, not about where we've been or even where we're at, but more about where we're headed. And that's really what the direction we're going to head in with Chasing Wonder, the podcast. We're going to continue to have conversations. There will continue to be guests on the show from time to time. But I really wanted to kind of shift directions and have a moment where I could just share some things that are on my heart, on my mind, some things that I've been challenged by. This year, I've been working on a book, finishing up a book, which I'm really excited about. So sometimes I'll share some thoughts or stories that'll be included in that book. I honestly don't know where we're headed. I'm just inviting you to come with me on a journey. Do you remember when you were a kid and your only job was to wonder and to play? I think that if we can get back to viewing the world the way we did when we first showed up, before we had all these preconceived notions of what life was supposed to look like, I think if we can get back to that point of wonder where anything is possible, that we'll see a little more, extra in our ordinary. And so I'm going to invite you to go with me on a little journey. I'm going to start here today with a post that my daughter shared. My daughter, Maddie, is an amazing artist. If you haven't followed her, Galaxy Queen Maddie on Instagram, go check it out. Or the Nerdy Girl Maddie on YouTube. She's just an amazing artist, an incredible human being. Katie and I constantly remind ourselves when we look at Maddie and Ken's that we live amongst greatness. And she posted something today that just really challenged me and encouraged me. I wanted to share it with you. She decided to write a breakup letter to 2020. Could I get an 80s 16 Candles style breakup song for this? Perfect. Dear 2020, you will not be missed. However, I thank you for a very memorable year. I thank you for the good times and I hate you for the bad. Hopefully this year was a wake-up call for the world, telling it that we need to be kinder, that we need to stand up for what's right, that we need to care for others, that we do not need to compare ourselves to others, that we're braver than we know, and that we are stronger than we think. Things that got us through 2020, she says the Tiger King, TikTok, Netflix, family, Disney Plus, our doggos, and much, much more. The world went through a lot, but we're still here. And remember, the people from the 1700s are probably looking down on us and saying, you think this was bad? We didn't even have toilets, TV, or good doctors. Goodbye, 2020. Maddie, I couldn't have said it better myself. 2020 has been a crazy year. It's been, on one hand, the worst year that I've ever experienced. And on another hand, friends, it's been one of the best years I've ever experienced. I think about all the incredible things that happen with friends and relationships this year. It's crazy how much closer you can grow to people when, sometimes you're kept apart with physical distancing and trying to be safe and all of that. It's been a good year for building strong relationships with friends, and I cannot wait till we can get back out there and be together again in person. Well, it is a new year. And as we get ready to move forward, sometimes they say the best way to move forward is to look back. So with that in mind, I want you to go back with me to one summer in the early 90s. I was 10 years old, movies were my babysitter. I know that sounds a little weird to say, but for a kid whose parents had recently gotten divorced and whose mother had to work full-time to pay the bills, it was a pretty fantastic arrangement. My sister was 2 years older than me, so technically it was okay that she would watch after me. After school, we'd come home and I'd make myself a quick snack, which was usually a Hot Pocket or a microwaved hot dog. I would then push the big orange button that caused the top of our VCR to open like a New York sidewalk cellar. I would settle into my red beanbag chair and disappear into one of the VHS movies that I had watched several dozen times, but somehow always seemed to feel brand new. See, the beautiful thing about watching a movie like Goonies or Stand By Me is that it shows young people going on these amazing adventures. Being a kid myself, I looked at these journeys as possibilities of things that I could actually do and actually see happen. As long as I can remember, I wanted to have a legitimate adventure like I saw in the movies. You know, no parental supervision, semi-illegal activity where you build lifelong memories, that kind of adventure. Who could have known that a lack of funding for our city park would have created the perfect place for that type of adventure? I grew up in Azusa, California, a city whose motto to this day is everything from A to Z in the USA. I've never understood that motto because as a kid it seemed like our city didn't have much of anything other than a community pool and a basketball court. Both of these were located at the park right across the street from my house. Now this is the same park where I had my first ever fight. It was a one-punch fight, but it wasn't because the bully fell when I hit him. No, it was because I ran away immediately after taking the first swing. This was also the time that I found out if you live across the street from a park where the fight occurs, you have to keep running past your house so he doesn't know where to find you later. That summer, after I turned 10, the city had pulled out the basketball courts in order to install new hoops and then ran out of money, leaving simply a dirt lot with these massive trenches where the old hoops stood. For many kids in the neighborhood that love sports, this was devastating, but for a kid like me looking for adventure, it was the perfect setup. One day, I loaded up an old Army Foot Locker that I got on a trip to the surplus store with my dad. In it was a large camouflage net and my most prized possessions, 3 1950s-era cap guns. These were toy guns that looked real. Not plastic, die-cast metal. My pops had given them to me, and I thought they were absolutely amazing. That entire summer, along with my next-door neighbor and a few other friends, we created the most amazing and elaborate forts out of these ditches at the parks. We used shovels to dig trenches, and the camouflage net became the roof that we would put over the trench. Each day, we added to our stockpile of supplies. In fact, we played a game that I learned at youth group growing up called Bigger or Better. You would start with a penny, and then each team would take a side of the street. You would go door to door, knocking on the doors and asking neighbors if they would trade you anything better than a penny for what you had. So you'd swap the penny for a can of soup, and then you'd swap the can of soup for an old book. And you would keep doing this to see who could get the biggest and best thing. One kid eventually got a Sony Watchman TV. This was the old handheld TV set with a huge antenna, and we were able to watch cartoons in the bunker. Eventually, we got tired of bringing all the supplies to the park each day, so we would load the valuable supplies in our Foot Locker and hide it behind rocks in a small alcove we made. The next morning, we would uncover it and set up our base camp. It was the perfect security plan. That is until one Monday morning in August. I heard an unusual sounding noise. It wasn't the ice cream truck I had grown accustomed to hearing every morning living by the park. This was a much louder sound. I opened the balcony door of my bedroom that overlooked the park, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. It was a cement truck. Apparently, the city had found the funds they needed to continue the project, and they began by setting up these huge concrete hoops in the ground and surrounding them with cement. I ran across the street in my pajamas and stared at the concrete pool that was now covering my childhood fort. To say I was devastated would be an understatement. See, I had just instantly lost my favorite belongings and a place that I loved and would never be able to visit again. I spent the next few weeks in a funk, not knowing if I would ever get over it. But then I began to wonder. Friends, wonder is a powerful thing. Wonder moves us beyond the moment we are stuck in, and it allows us to see things from a different perspective. I realized that every great adventure movie I loved as a kid began with loss. If One-Eye Willie never lost the treasure, well, then the Goonies could never go out and discover it. I started to imagine that one day, maybe even 50 years from now, the city would decide it was once again time to rebuild the park. And under that old concrete, they would find a time capsule, a monument to the greatest summer of my childhood. Friends, maybe you've lost something more significant this year. A job, a relationship, maybe there's a dream that you believed in and it's now gone. But I wonder what would happen if we chose to honor the past without living in it. To be grateful for our memories and our experiences, but to press forward and to create some new ones. So, Wonder Chasers, I invite you to head out on this journey with me. And who knows, along the way, we might even discover some treasure.